the other night. Your eyes killed the laughter in your little dress of white. Well, you look like an angel and you spoke like a saint. But I guess you got evil and your eyes are to blame. I will every time that I know you try to fool me. My conscience was there to let me know. Well, I guess you got evil. I will every time that I know you tried to fool me. My conscience was there to let me know. Well, I guess you got evil just the other night. Your eyes killed the laughter in your little dress of white. Well, you look like an angel and you spoke like a saint. But I guess you got evil and your eyes are to blame. I will every time that I know you tried to fool me. My conscience was there to let me know. I will every time that I know you tried to fool me. My conscience was there to let me know.
Stand up and yell it. We will not be oppressed. This is Thinking Liberty. It's Tuesday, December 7th, 2010. We're live on thinkingliberty.net.
When you say this is Thinking Liberty, it sounds almost like you're saying Stinking Liberty. And saying Stinking Liberty reminds me of a rather uncouth person I'm not going to mention in there. So, what do we
Bosco?
got? Yeah, not Bosco, though. Bosco's a cool person. Yes, today is also the
Stinking
anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. So, how many years has it been, Darian?
It's been since 1941.
How many years is that?
That's, six, wait, no, wait.
Yes, that's
Yes,
how many
that's
years.
how many years it is.
Yes, it's,
This is not math time. It's 69 years.
there we go. It was a very good year.
What?
There you go. So, yeah, somebody out off the mic just said things. So 69 years since
That just
the
didn't
attack.
sound right. Like, I calculated 69. I was like, nah, it can't be that many.
It's like, well, every time it comes up to 69, you think, nah, that can't be it.
All right, so
Huh.
Mr. 69 over there is Tennyson,
Yep.
and I'm Darian. We also have Bile and Lauren here,
You.
Not 69.
and we'll have Bosco on the line later. We're gonna have Chris Lempa talking about food and food preservation, and he's gonna come in around 8:45, and yeah, let's get in the show. So, a day that will live in infamy: December 7th, Julian Assange arrested.
Okay, that's he's using it for a different purpose here. All right, yeah. So Julian Assange apparently was taken in by the forces of the British government today, and
The forces of evil.
yes, the forces of evil. I couldn't just come out and blatantly say the forces of darkness here, but no, the people who might like to see him go down for something, and not for the petty, non-rape, non-sexual assault thing that he's supposedly going down for. I think that they just want to take him out of commission for a bit.
Well, I mean, this whole thing, obviously WikiLeaks is bigger than Assange. Like, everybody knows that. Assange says that all the time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is sending a message that if you if you're going to make a name for, if you're going to stick your neck out there, if you're going to embarrass us, we can destroy your reputation, we can destroy your life. And I think it's just, if they're able to do that, they're just doing what they can, damage control, deflect the story away from them onto Julian's problems.
Yes.
Now, this brings up the whole base of it is that what he's arrested for are sexual charges in Sweden. Now, a lot of people are saying that what he's accused of isn't actually rape, but it does seem, according to the Guardian's reports, that it does involve, an act of non-consensual sex. That he was told that, this woman told him that he could have sex with her if he used a condom, and then he didn't. So I mean, that's
So he pulled a Quagmire.
that's
Yes.
kind of. Allegedly. Now, I honestly don't believe this. All right. I hate to be the guy who's saying that this woman's lying about this guy raping her.
No,
'cause,
I'm pretty
you
sure
know,
that it's true, but I don't think there was anything really non-consensual about it. I think
Right,
that it was
the
she
women
was surprised.
The women never said that it was rape.
Right.
According to what I've read, there's a law that allows women, presumably men too, to issue like a complaint about a person after the fact if they were told to use a condom and did not. I guess in sort of an assault fashion.
Right.
I didn't look at the law
I've
explicitly,
seen
but
different things like on not the Guardian, but the Atlantic. Somebody had a write-up about this specifically, and Jim Bovard, good libertarian Jim Bovard, he has a whole write-up on his blog about this whole thing as well. He says his thing was called "Call Interpol, the condom broke." That's his whole thing.
Well, there's one woman that the condom did break for, and then the second woman allegedly, she said that he could, have sex if he used a condom,
Right.
and that he didn't. So that's he's the condition of having sex was using the condom. But when you read about this, the women were still seen like with him the next day. It wasn't like. No one thought there was anything wrong. It was just after the fact. Supposedly, they found out that they found out from each other that he had done both of them, and he was kind of a jerk about it. And,
Yeah.
well,
I mean,
one
that's-
woman, the story from the one woman is rather suspicious in that she apparently like went to a press conference he was having and approached him and then gave him her number and like address and then picked him up and took him out to dinner and then brought him back to her place and then they had sex and then she complained, I think in one of the stories I read, she complained that he paid attention to her computer more than her. So it almost sounds like a woman who's just pissed off because this nerd
Yeah.
really wasn't all that interested in her outside of sex.
Yeah,
It's
no
on her
offense.
computer.
If WikiLeaks is more interesting than you, don't take offense here. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Regardless of whether he did or did not commit a crime, do you think he's going to get a fair trial?
I don't think they have any reason to give him a fair trial. But
I don't know if it'll even get to a trial.
they'll probably
If it's an
he's going to be
honest-
detained. I mean, he may be handed over to the Swedish authorities, which would be better than anything. But I don't think that any good is going to come from the legal system, the so-called legal.
I think it depends on whether or not this is an actual, like a relatively honest. I suspect that the women were kind of egged on into issuing these
Yeah.
complaints, but if they are honest complaints, then I suspect it'll amount to not much of anything. But
Right.
if it's actually spurred on by government officials, whether domestic or foreign, then I suspect he'll be tied up with that for a while, and might be found guilty of something at least
Something.
to cause problems for him.
And I don't want to belittle the whole idea that he may have actually done some bad things at some point in his life, because and I don't have to have him be a hero on one level and be a hero on absolutely all levels. No, he's a human being. But personally, I think this is just a version of dirty tricks they pulled out in the 21st century. They decided to throw something on him. This seems to be the one thing they can get to stick because it actually did happen. And they're, well, we'll work with it.
Well, I mean, he actually did have sexual relations with them. We don't know if there were issues of consent, because all we're hearing is this media story that's I'm sure it's going to be really distorted.
Yeah, I'm not going to bother listening to the whole story about this. I'm going to wait and see what new releases are going to come, because that's what I'm there for WikiLeaks for. And I want to mention Jacob Applebaum. So he's probably going to be taking a bigger role in the organization, just maybe if Julian is away, depending on how big he's already been in the past. We have no idea how big he's been so far. Jacob Applebaum, by the way, he's the only American associated with the WikiLeaks group. So he's like 27 years old, another computer science liberty type of fellow, and he has, I'm going to say, absconded. No one can find him. No one can keep track of him. He just kind of manages to get away, and he's gotten away. They had an interview with him on Rolling Stone. Very interesting fellow. So you can look it up. So Jacob Applebaum, and you can see what may or may not be happening later on.
Now, have you guys seen, I forget what the guy's name was, but on Alex Jones, they were saying that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks is actually he's a zombie of the New World Order, and all of this is actually done by the upper echelon of the New World Order to attack
the lower echelons.
The lower, like Hillary Clinton, she's not part of the upper,
right?
And then so that's why those they're very specifically chosen. Pieces of leaks, so that they can attack and discredit certain members of different administrations.
I've heard all types of weird conspiracy stories.
Deep rabbit holes. Alex Jones actually was not the one pushing this. It was one of his guests, and Alex was hesitantly allowing him to continue.
Alex hesitates on something? My gosh.
Yeah, he was trying to add support for like Julian Assange and what they were doing. I think he was conflicted. His conspiracy theories were conflicting, and he wasn't sure where to go.
Oh no, there's a discontinuity in the conspiracies. Yeah, when Alex Jones is a little hesitant to endorse you, you might
want to back up just a second.
Just back up on the conspiracy here. I mean, what does a person have to do to get in the higher echelons of the New World Order if Hillary Clinton can't make it?
Maybe they're the reptoids. I mean, maybe
you have to eat a kitten.
She's not racially pure. She's not pure reptilian.
I guess I don't know, but I posted this as a joke because I have the Alex Jones channel on my RSS feed from YouTube because sometimes he has interesting guests,
right.
And so I saw this about WikiLeaks. I'm like, oh well, this is rather unique on point of view. So I listened to these 4 parts by this guy, and I posted it as a joke, saying like the rabbit hole goes very deep. WikiLeaks is actually a puppet of the New World Order, and I got like 3 or 4 people on Twitter who are having a serious conversation. A little creeped me out.
I mean, I've been on Facebook and seeing people convinced that Julian Assange is probably some insider, and it's really some sort of fake out, false flag type of thing where you can't really believe it because even though he may be revealing some of the stuff, it's under orders of some other people, and it's really just a part of the other conspiracy. Nothing gets out of this conspiracy.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to is people just can't believe that a small group of people can have that much power against the government, and they can. They're smart. They're using technology. They're they know what they're doing. They're
hard.
Planning.
They would say alternately that people really can't believe that a small group of people is really controlling the entire world.
Well, yeah, because it requires a lot of people to control the entire world. It doesn't require that many people to set up a website and encrypt things and edit documents and mail them to news agencies to vet them and then release them.
Yeah, there's nothing fancy about WikiLeaks in terms of the technology or the implementation. It's just a dedicated group of a couple people who really the backbone of WikiLeaks is providing a anonymous and encrypted channel to give them information. As soon as you have that plus any sort of legitimacy or trust, then it's like downhill. You're going to get people give you data. I mean, it's like libertyactivism.info. If you provide an easy way to add content, then people will just add content. And that's really what like Web 2.0 was about. Like making a platform that is easy to use for the average person. And if you're a whistleblower, WikiLeaks is pretty damn easy, and you can trust the encryption and whatnot, the interface that they have into that system.
So what exactly is Thinking Liberty doing with WikiLeaks? Do you have anything on that?
Well, I have on. I did this before the whole. I should have advertised it like C4SS, but I didn't. C4SS went and put up their own link, and Mike Gogolski went and made a little script to automatically, to mirror their website and whatnot, and make it easy for people. The night before they released that, I had gone and done the same thing for Thinking Liberty, governmentabuse.info, and libertyactivism.info. So if you go to WikiLeaks and either of those domains, you'll go to my home server, which has a fairly up-to-date mirror. I think I need to update it for today, but...
See, C4SS is actually following Vile around. They're following his footsteps. They're watching to see what he's going to do. And they're like, but whatever he does, we got to do this too. We got to do it bigger. We got to announce it.
But it's an easy thing to do, and I decided not to put it up on my shared host instead put it on my home computer, which means that I could get raided, I guess, rather than just having my account shut down. But, I figured there's enough other people doing the same thing that I'm low on the likelihood of that occurring if they really wanted to go after people. But I also started mirroring the dumps of the data to libertyactivism.info. So if you go there and go to Cablegate,
Yep.
and I also put mirrors of the Afghan diary and Iraq diary stuff, because that website's down too, but no one's really noticed. And that data, I found a mirror of the website for Afghan, but not for Iraq, and I've been meaning to put that up, but I haven't had time.
All right, so the URLs for our listeners who
WikiLeaks,
don't know yet.
for everyone else, I mean, there's tons of them out there. So you could go to wikileaks.c4ss.org. You can go to wikileaks.governmentabuse.info or wikileaks.libertyactivism.info or wikileaks.thinkingliberty.net.
All right, that's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, there are lots of WikiLeaks mirrors out there. So even if these get taken down somehow, or just general things crapping out takes them down,
I heard there was 20,000 mirrors already. So
That seems like a lot. There may be.
I thought there was like 200.
Well,
I heard a huge number.
The last number I saw was around 550. The problem is that the way it was a smart idea. I think it was poorly implemented, though. WikiLeaks put up a page saying, we'll do the mirrors for you. You create an account on your server and use this key, and we'll be able to log into the account and just upload the website, which is nice. It's a push model. You don't have to worry about doing it yourself. But it'd be better if they just set up like an rsync repository or a Git repository, and then just allowed people to sync it on a cron job or something. And that way, they don't have to worry about like giving WikiLeaks access to your server, which I wasn't willing to do.
Okay.
And but it was a good idea, and I think officially they've got like 500 and some. But mine aren't on that list because I don't go through them. And so there's probably at least double that, if not more. But those ones are not listed publicly as well. Like, obviously, WikiLeaks lists all the ones that they're pushing to, but mine aren't listed anywhere but through our websites and whatnot.
All right, so WikiLeaks is going to continue because Julian Assange is just one guy, and they've still got mirrors. They've still got people working behind the scenes. So that's good. Now, we talked a lot about their mega leak last week,
Which it wasn't actually that mega yet. Like, they're trickling it out, which I think is a good idea, and apparently they were told to do that or recommended to do that by the newspapers. That way they can spread out the news story.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you have like 1,000 newsworthy things, a newspaper can only be so long.
Yeah, but it seems like they're trickling it out a little too slow. I don't know if they don't have them ready or if they, like, I haven't really paid attention to all of the, like, each time they update. I haven't looked to see if there's like maybe one big one in each grouping. Yeah, there was like 5 updates today, and I didn't see anything in the news about any of the cables that came out today. So I don't know what the severity of these are.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't checked around the recent cables. I don't think there were that many released since last week. I think maybe it was around 50. So I mean, that's significant, but it wasn't. But it wasn't earth-shattering.
They're claiming they have like over 250,000 cables. Last time I checked, they were less than 700. And if they keep trickling out like a dozen or two a day, it's going to take a really long time to get these all out.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Guardian generally has the UK paper has some good coverage of that. Now, here's something. Actually, I wanted to bring this up. I just remember that last week, one of the Guardian editors said that in the New York Times coverage, they reported all the stories that showed North Korea and Iran looking bad. They reported that these leaks about that made it look like Iran had these long range missiles, and they're sharing them and stuff. But what they didn't mention at all were cables, I think, from the Moscow embassy that said Russian intelligence showed that this wasn't the case. That that their capabilities were
they're playing things up for their own benefits as well. So, or even the benefits of their paymasters, maybe. I wouldn't expect anything differently.
It's interesting to see how much mainstream large media is in with the establishment. I forget who I was reading this from, either and Kevin Carson, but just saying, these people who are in the ruling class, classes, represents a certain social rank, but also a certain way of life. People tend to move in the same circles. People are attending the same parties, going to the same things, and a lot of the big media is in the same social group as a lot of the political elites, as a lot of the corporate elites, and there's a shared culture there. So it's interesting to think how invested U.S. media is. I'm not sure how invested like foreign media, like British media is. Are they just invested in their in the British ruling class? They don't really care about the Americas. I think I'm just wondering where this tension's coming from.
I think the Anglo-American unity, the so-called special relationship, is pretty well established. So the Americans are in favor of whatever is in favor of Britain, and the British media is in favor of whatever is in favor of America. So they're pretty much together on this. And I've heard a lot of the British anti-war people talking about the atrocious behavior of the of BBC and all the other news coverages up to the lead up of the war, and even their coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian issue and other things, among other things. So I've seen the same kind of complaints throughout the Anglosphere. So.
Okay, because it's interesting that I'm actually seeing criticisms in The Guardian about U.S. media, how it's very conciliatory, just parroting the Washington line. I think... Was it Matt Lauer said the international manhunt for Julian Assange is over, when actually, his lawyer informed the police where he was. Like they knew where he was at all times.
Right.
And like when the police got the proper warrant, then like him and his lawyer just, drove into the police station pretty much.
Well.
And it's like, how much...
How sensationalist can you do this?
Can you get?
Yeah, how sensationalist can the media get if they're actually going about talking like they have been? And I was looking at this update from Jim Bovard's blog. Apparently there's a new poster over at the Washington Times. This is accompanying a story at the Washington Times. It's a wanted dead or alive, and there's a picture of Julian Assange there splattered with blood. The picture, the poster, splattered with blood, not Julian Assange. And there's a target there on the front, right over his eye. So there's all types of interesting things going on there from the American media about Julian Assange.
Well, unlike the State Department, WikiLeaks clearly has blood on their hands.
I guess so.
There's no lying, covering up, and killing that the U.S. government's involved in. Just when WikiLeaks talks about it too much, that's what's dangerous.
Well, did you see that parody article on one of those satire websites, like WikiLeaks drones kills family in Pakistan?
Yeah, that was brilliant. I think it was a British satire magazine. I tweeted it a few weeks ago. It
was quite extensive article.
Yeah, that was a good one. But this just shows the ridiculous stance of the state here. That them being in power is what protects you. It doesn't matter how many people are dying. It doesn't. Well, I guess it matters at some level, but of course people are going to die. We're going to keep secrets from you. We're going to exercise power of you. But, that's what's keeping the world safe. That's what stabilizes the international system. And
their rule is perfectly normal and natural and, of course, cannot be questioned.
Right. That's the default. Now, when you get political, when you start questioning the international political order, when you start doing things that undermine their ability to make secret deals with each other and talk to each other about the people they rule, without the people they rule knowing about it, that's when things get dangerous. When there's a challenge to the system, that's what's dangerous.
Well, it was like that one article. So there's this mailing list at work called Hackers, and it's like the biggest mailing list in the company, and it's got like thousands and thousands of people on it, and they talk about all kinds of things. And normally I don't pay attention because I just get frustrated. Because people will say politically dumb things and I just can't help but respond. and I didn't respond this time, but there was someone had posted an obviously biased in favor of WikiLeaks comment about how Julian Assange had turned himself in today, and someone went and made a comment about the one cable that was supposed to be about like American interests throughout the world. And it just showed how ignorant this person was, because they obviously didn't read the cable. Because on its face, it kind of sounds bad. Like, okay, this is supposed to be this important infrastructure around the world to the American government. And, therefore it would have military bases or, secret bases or secret pipelines.
The person was a
all these
plant.
things.
Obviously, the person was a plant.
Well, but the actual cable included ridiculous things like, like a cobalt mine in Africa and all these random things that are important on a very, very, very high level, like economically speaking, militarily speaking, in a very general sense.
Yeah.
Like, in the next 50 years, we're going to still need steel. Steel still...
It would include, like, the number of engineering graduates in the United States or from Arizona or something. Like, it's the most obscure things.
Yeah, terribly vague, terribly obscure in some cases. And this person was using that as, like, concrete evidence that what Julian Assange, as if it was him, did was terrible, and he's good that he's locked up.
Julian Assange is the devil, apparently. I've seen people come out and say Julian Assange is a terrorist. I've heard reports. I've heard reports on other things that Julian Assange is more dangerous than Al Qaeda. It's just the most insane things that I'm hearing.
I wish I could do that little and be considered that deadly or like that important of a person.
Well, be careful what you wish for.
Be careful where you put your penis.
Now
Assange, that just made me lose my track of thought here.
The words penis and hand made you...
Well, actually, depending on who we're talking about, Assange may be more dangerous than Al-Qaeda, or more accurately, better comparison, WikiLeaks, since it's more than Assange, may be more dangerous than Al-Qaeda to the rule of the U.S. government. I mean, Al-Qaeda it's this network that is their existence is justifying all the crazy stuff that the U.S. government's doing, whereas WikiLeaks is tearing it down. But WikiLeaks is obviously less dangerous to the average American than terrorism or the American government, since statistically the U.S. You're more likely to be harmed by a government agent than by a non-government terrorist. And there is actually an interesting editorial. I forget what newspaper. I think it was one of the L.A. newspapers. It was, what if there was WikiLeaks before 9/11? And they're saying how all these FBI agents were getting frustrated about how their investigations weren't being taken seriously, and how they had all this, they couldn't get the information they needed, and what if they leaked these things and then people connected the dots and realized that 9/11 and actually thwarted the plan. I mean, that's a
crazy idea. Obviously 9/11 was an inside job.
Oh, there we go. As simple as before we go any further, I wanted to give a shout out, because last week it was before it happened. It was before the birthday, December 4th. It was a birthday of someone very special to me, and so I just wanted to say it now. Happy birthday, Jay-Z. So it was Jay-Z's birthday, and I didn't make it out.
I'm sure he's touched.
Yeah, I didn't make it out to the party, so one of these days I'm gonna go out there, go see Beyonce and Jay, and we'll see how things are.
All right. So now, if you're listening live, you can join the conversation by checking out that contact box on the side of thinkingliberty.net. We've got phone, we've got Skype, we've got a chat room, we've got Twitter, we've got email, we've got everything.
Yeah, check out that box.
Check it out.
All right, so what do we got? Contact@thinkingliberty.net. Write us an email. I know. I like getting the emails. I get some emails every once in a while. They're pretty cool. At Twitter, please go on Twitter. I know you're out there tweeting and doing whatever it is that you do. So go
Facebook.
Facebooking. You're Facebooking.
I think we have almost 300 likes or friends or whatever the hell it is.
I don't know what they're doing with Facebook these days, but we got that many people up there. So, yeah, so we have. But go to Twitter. We don't have that many followers in Twitter. We really need to get. I think we should get at least over 100 followers in Twitter very easily. So we could probably do that quickly.
Do we not already have that many?
No, I think we only have 98.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I was
we need
checking.
more
everything.
More.
We just need more.
We need
Like,
everything.
We need more.
Yes.
Like, we should be able to have more, Facebook friends, or certainly, I think, more people that know about us than have friended us. So we need to get people
Right.
to... I find that it's difficult, though. I think people get, like, a notification, and they just lose it. Because I've got, like, governmentabuse.info, and everyone I show it to really likes the idea, and I think I only got, like, 60 or 90, I forget how many, but... likes or whatever the hell it is for the community page. But certainly more people think it's a cool idea than that, at least from what I gather. So I think it just gets lost in all the other crap that they get.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you got to find a way to make it to the top and like sticky that thing. So, yeah, folks, Think End Liberty. That's the one. Think End Liberty over at Twitter. You'll find it.
Someone did. I think Copblock or somebody did a follow Friday and put Thinking Liberty. Like, no,
It's like,
not
oh.
that jerk off.
Yes, Think End Liberty. Think
Probably
End Liberty.
Nick who has it.
No.
It's some like
Some
10th
Glenn-
Amendment
Glenn Beck fan.
We need to get rid of the 16th Amendment and 17th Amendment guy.
Which is a great idea, but it doesn't quite go far enough.
But that's his shtick, like
Yeah.
regular. And I think he wants a national like flat tax and get rid of the income
Oh,
tax.
yeah. Well,
So
watch
one of
out!
the- one of those
Watch out
kind.
for that radical. No,
He's not thinking liberty hard enough.
he doesn't think very hard enough. So continuing, call us up on the phone. No, you've got phones. I've got a phone here. I've got my private chat room over here. But they've got phones that you can all listen
we
to.
have a phone that's
We
connected
have-
to Skype.
That's right.
And that's connected to a Mac, and that's connected to a brand new Panasonic G25
Oh,
46-inch TV
Now,
that I bought yesterday.
I've been looking to buy the G25 for about a year now, and I'm like every year it's gonna.
It's only been out
Chris-
since like June.
No, well, the G series anyway, because I was getting the G10. It's like, okay, the G10s are going to be awesome. Maybe I can get a V10. It's like, then I couldn't get the V10. So then I was waiting for, okay, maybe the V20, V25, and then they all turned out to be 3D TVs. I'm like,
Yeah, who
crap, I don't
cares?
want any 3D TVs. But it turns out they're actually even better at 2D than the other things. So maybe, but they're still too expensive. But the G25 and G20 right on the mark. So, and I'm getting a 54-inch because it's not 60-inch.
Because Tennyson has to get a bigger TV than me.
Yeah, well, I was going to get a bigger TV than you anyway. But
Sure.
yeah, I was thinking of getting something close to 60 inches because that's where we need to be. It has to be a third of the distance, and that's just where it has to be. 54 is close enough. But enough about TVs. Call us up.
But if you call us, it'll come up on this giant TV,
Yes.
and we'll be able to click on it and be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
It is an
So
awesome
you can
TV.
you can experience this TV. You can be on TV.
Yeah, sort of.
On this awesome huge TV
Yeah.
in Biles' living room.
It's the big
eh,
TV.
which is also the Thinking Liberty production room, Thinking Liberty recording studio, Thinking Liberty command center.
Yes.
I like command center.
We just got a follower. I mean, I just got the notification. It's pretty amazing, right? It's interactive television almost, yeah. But yeah, the phone number if you want to call in 919-88.
No go.
That's correct. 919-88-NO-GOV or 919-886-6468.
6468.
That's right. So, call.
as Darian peeks out the meter.
I break the microphone.
All right, so we got
And the computer.
we have a commenter there who's saying that no, we should be getting a ton soon. She will work her magic here, and
That's a good thing to work.
all right. And you know, speaking of birthdays, I wanted to give a shout out to somebody else very special to me. She's having a birthday. You know, girl from Pennsylvania. She's turning 21 this month. No birthday. So a shout out to Taylor Swift. So I really like Taylor Swift and her music. She's amazing. So
All right.
happy
Okay.
birthday.
So maybe we'll hear about some other birthdays later in the program. I don't know. But let's get now. Here's an interesting topic. Because of the huge controversy surrounding WikiLeaks, they've lost some of their infrastructure they were using. Amazon dropped them from their Amazon Web Services.
I think the order went. Amazon kicked them off of their cloud. Then everydns.net dropped WikiLeaks.org. Then Tabula dropped their charts.
Which is really bizarre that they would just not let WikiLeaks use their charts. Like,
Well, if I remember right, they said it was because of Lieberman's threats, basically.
Who isn't Lieberman threatening these days? That guy's a nutcase.
Yeah.
He needs
it
to
should be put away.
He needs to be put down or controlled or something. You know, they could put him away in a broom closet or something.
Put him in like Arkham Asylum or something. You know, he'll escape every few years. Batman will like punch him and then like put him back in the asylum.
Arkham Asylum seems to be like the least effective organization. It's what happens there? They just have a rotating door at that place. Yeah. Anyway, what's going on with Visa now? Apparently, Visa is no longer covering them.
As is
MasterCard isn't covering them.
Yeah, the what was the other thing? The bank that they were using for the defense fund.
I don't remember the bank's name. It was a bank in
Like
Switzerland.
Post something or other. That they dropped him. Well, they claimed it was because he lied on his application, which I don't doubt that he did, because he said he was in Geneva.
Okay.
And I guess he doesn't have an address or
He
something.
used his lawyer's address to start the bank.
So they dropped, or they froze like $41,000 worth of funds and then shut down access to it or something.
Okay.
And there was something. Was that the most recent? There's been.
I think the credit cards were the most recent. I think they are still taking like bank transfers into some German bank, I think, or whatever is on the WikiLeaks website.
So if I wanted to donate to WikiLeaks, I couldn't. Could I still do all the things that I used to do, like go through PayPal, use my Visa card?
Nope. But so now this is interesting because initially when I heard of this, I was like, oh, Amazon's dropping WikiLeaks. I should find out, why they did that.
Right.
And then I looked. I was like, maybe I'll write them an email about like, I'm a longtime Amazon customer.
Right.
I don't really like this. Why are you doing this? And then I saw their actual release, and they had like 2 paragraphs of like, really like anti-WikiLeaks pronouncements. Like,
what's going on?
They're making, they're harming people. They had no right to do this.
Okay.
Like, human rights organizations are against WikiLeaks, and it was just dreadful. And I mean, I figured, I don't want to support this. I want to make it known that I'm against this. So I'm going to send them, a notification that I will not be patronizing their services unless something is done about this. Now, I wasn't specific as to what, maybe like saying, all right, well, we made a mistake on condemning WikiLeaks. We can't, we don't want to support them just because we're afraid that it'll harm our other customers, something like that. So and then like all these other companies, just one after another, like start turning away from WikiLeaks. So it's like, what kind of effect can I have? If there was enough of a backlash against Amazon, like immediately, then maybe other companies would see like, all right, well, maybe it's not in our interest to like cave so quickly to the government. Maybe we'll make some, we'll make a big deal. We'll do a PR campaign for why we should keep them. But, that obviously didn't happen. So
I just don't think, like, in practice, any of those type of boycotts mean anything. Because those companies are too big to care if 0.1 or less percent of their customers are pissed off. And so monetarily they don't care. And PR-wise, well, if it was a big deal, like, to the general populace, then they would already be affected. Like, you wouldn't need a boycott. People would just naturally turn away from them if it was such a big deal. Just like in the stock market when, all of a sudden this company no one trusts anymore, then their stock goes down to zero. It's not like there's a boycott of that stock. It's just people know that it's not in their interest to deal with that anymore. And very few times in history have real boycotts, like centralized boycotts, really amounted to much on a larger scale anyway.
All right, so practically,
and in this case, I think that the Lou Rockwell, like in this particular issue, there's been like the Lou Rockwell crowd versus like everyone else, and Lou Rockwell crowd is more where I'm at, which is basically obviously so in practice you've got a couple things like the Amazon claims that the DNS and the or not the DNS, but the DDoS was not part of
Right.
the reason that they shut them down.
That distributed denial of service attack on the server.
Which, in my for me, the first thing I thought of was that it was related to that, and I don't doubt that it did in fact have something to do with that.
Okay.
Because think about what happened. I mean, WikiLeaks is being attacked. They had previously been on Amazon, but then left because they didn't want to be on U.S. soil. Then they brought it back because they were getting attacked. So it's like you're being shot at, and I'm going to go stand behind someone who's got armored
a really
an armored
good armor.
car,
It seems
right?
like they have some of the best armor you can find.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
but you're still bringing on this threat. So that was the first thing I thought of, and they claim that it had nothing to do with it. I'd have, I don't know enough about their infrastructure or what happened behind the scenes.
Maybe
but
someone will leak it.
I
It'll
Maybe.
be a
hope.
meta leak.
But
It'll be an Amazon leak.
But the Amazon has been battling the government with regards to taxation and stuff for
Okay.
a while now, and I suspect that's one of the big
They
reasons that
totally
this occurred.
gave in on New York. So
Well, they have less of a battle in places where they physically are, and they have a weaker case, legally speaking. But they still have been lobbying to not have to pay sales tax, and I think that's a generally good thing because no one pays the taxes that that they're supposed to pay from Amazon, and I am speculating that had some, the Lieberman government,
Oh,
So they think
people-
okay,
We
we'll
all
lean on
love
you
you.
harder on this issue if you don't
suspect
play
they
ball
would.
on this issue.
because Amazon was already a big name in that field. They already had problems with these people in the first place.
right.
So I speculate that had something to do with it, and then that
Okay.
just cascaded through
Now,
all these other.
For our
firms.
own purposes, practically, what do you think we should do? I mean, Bosco isn't here, but should we divest from Amazon? Should we, withdraw from them, withdraw our support from them, stop the affiliation program? Because we are affiliated with an Amazon program here. So,
Well, at first I would have said absolutely yes.
Okay.
It was mainly just Amazon and the two others. It's not that hard to not choose Amazon instead of Barnes and Noble or
Yeah.
something else. I mean, Amazon owns a bunch of companies, so if you are boycotting, you have to actually look what Amazon owns. And the other thing was that I felt that Amazon took a much harder line against WikiLeaks. They didn't just release a statement saying that we were concerned that hosting them would disrupt service for our other customers, or a lot of them said they were promoting illegal activity, which I mean WikiLeaks does in fact say leak everything. If Bradley Manning broke the law and leaked stuff, he's a hero. So I think that's a more defensible position than what Amazon did, which was have a statement where I think more than half of it was condemning WikiLeaks morally.
It was odd that they went into that much detail. It almost felt like either the person who was in charge of dealing with the issue at Amazon personally disliked it.
is Bezos still behind Amazon? Jeff Bezos? I mean, I'm wondering if he had a hand in this kind of thing.
Yeah,
It felt like a personal
Yeah,
message.
Bezos was protecting his political allies here.
Yeah, it was I mean, if they're getting political pressure, I think the right thing to do is to point out something, or at least do something other than parrot the U.S. government's line against WikiLeaks. But I mean, the fact that Amazon has been joined by all these other corporations and moving away from WikiLeaks, I think that weakens the case for a boycott.
it's in
However,
the best
Amazon
interest.
still has this. I think they took the worst position of all of them.
Yeah, but when I read it, it felt like a personal plea. The reason was personally written rather than this cold, calculated. Well, they broke the law and that's against our terms of service. So in that regard, it almost felt like someone was just poking at a wound from Amazon towards WikiLeaks, but. It's in the best interest of all these firms to do this, because otherwise, it's not even the things that we'll see. Suddenly, they'll get visits from the IRS, or they'll try to buy a company and get checked out for antitrust legislation or whatever. I mean, these companies have more to lose than what's visible,
And that's the problem.
Yeah, and as market anarchists, we're opposed to the fact that they're corporations, but we're not opposed to business. And I think that's sort of like what the Mises crew was sort of the LouRockwell.com guys were saying. Like, look, these people, yes, they're getting favors from the government in that they're a corporation, but it's still a business. Like, they're still producing things that people want. And they're as much a victim in the regard of being threatened by the government as the rest of us are. If we're gonna be pissed off at Amazon, then why aren't we pissed off at like anyone who we've ever done business with that works through Amazon, or anyone who like has made money through Amazon, or who has used PayPal and takes donations? Because people were talking out against PayPal, but then many libertarian websites use PayPal for donations, including Thinking Liberty.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, where do you draw the line? Because you're paying taxes, right? So you're the reason you do pay taxes is because you're threatened by the government. We know that the government was threatening Amazon and these other companies. So, like, in my opinion, you have to give a little bit of leeway.
We're getting a call, but there are
Is it a
four.
call?
We're getting a phone call from a carrot, apparently.
Who is that there? Oh, Jeremy Weiland. All right. Jeremy, I have 4 points I want to respond to Bile, but hopefully I won't forget
We got
them. Go
Bosco
ahead,
on the line.
Jeremy.
Somebody says
Hey, what's
something.
up?
Hey,
How you doing?
doing good.
You guys can hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine.
can.
We got this new speaker set up, too. It's cool.
Very cool. I just heard, I caught the last part of I've got 4 points to respond to Bile.
Yes,
Wait, who is this? Is this?
that's Jeremy.
Bosco.
Okay, it's
That was
Bosco.
Bosco?
I thought we had Jeremy. Why is Jeremy's name?
Maybe
up there?
Jeremy was the last person on.
Because Jeremy chatted us and
Okay.
Bosco called us.
All right,
Yes.
so we got Bosco on the line. All
Bos-
right, awesome.
Bosco?
Bosco has just joined us virtually.
Yes.
He what is it? He's a cyber host.
He's cybering us
He's
right now.
cybering us.
Yes.
That sounds sexy.
Have you seen the thing that Charles Johnson posted? It was like the website on whether using the prefix cyber will make you look like an idiot.
Yeah,
And the first question was, "Are you a sci-fi author?" And when you click yes, it says, "Then you're probably okay." And then like if you go no, it goes through this whole other thing.
So in about 15 months, you're going to look like a moron using the word cyber, probably. All right, that's
All
how
right,
fast
so-
things are moving now. We got to do it
What's,
in like
what's the
15 months.
definition of cybernetic, technically? Anybody know?
I think it's changed over the years, but cyber. Where's
It
the word?
means technology that other people won't understand.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And the word cyber. I mean, I forgot where that even came from. It's Greek for the word from the word.
Cyberius, the god of the internet.
Okay, that's very good. Darian. Yeah, but it comes from Kuber, and like Kuber, I forget what that was supposed to mean back in the day. But there's another relation to words that we use today.
Cougar?
No, not cougar. Not. I'm not going to finish that phrase, but something I wanted to point out is that we're getting more followers on Thinking Liberty for
the
Twitter.
followers are coming in.
I know, we just got followers all of a
All
sudden.
right, so
it's
we
amazing.
actually have to wrap this up because we got to get into our interview. But
Right.
I want to say in response to Bile, I think it's a major problem that it's more in these companies' interest to cave the U.S. government than respond to an angry, liberty-loving public, and that points to all the work that we have to do to make it the other case. I also think that the Lou Rockwell crowd, they tend to support business because it's business, and I think it's a little different from the IRS coming into a private citizen. The government, as it is when the government comes into Amazon. They're going to have their suits, meet with the Amazon suits, and they're probably going to work out a deal. Which, yeah, it's coercive and it's wrong, but I think Amazon's a participating player in that. So
I think it's a matter of degrees. I don't think there's really a difference of kind, and that degrees is a personal choice to where your threshold is.
Oh, the other thing, I think, as I was saying, it's easier to, not use Amazon than it is to change your entire hosting for your website or set up an entirely new payment system than PayPal. So, I mean, I think we'll see more people moving away from these things, but it's not going to be as obvious. It's not as immediate as like, all right, from today forth, I will not be buying from Amazon. It's like,
Right.
all right, I got to find an alternative to PayPal. I have to figure out how it works. I got to put it in my website. I got to set aside a lot of time for
Right,
that.
but that has nothing to do with the ideological stance that you take, though. Like, if you're opposed to Amazon, because of what they did, then you ought to be opposed to PayPal for what they did and every DNS. And my particular issue with this was that people focused on Amazon and then continued to use PayPal. And I saw people joking about it. So these people are like adamantly opposed to Amazon. And then, well, PayPal, what else am I going to use? Well, there are other services that you can use. And if it's an ideological stance you're making, then sorry.
You
but
can also say that
wait.
Amazon is the most vulnerable point.
They probably are.
All right, so
I think,
Tennyson, and then we got to wrap it up
no,
and go
I
into
think
Chris.
that no, Bosco had something that he wanted to say, but he couldn't get in. So, Bosco, was there something you wanted to say?
I don't know. It sounds an awful lot like the whole libertarian purity argument to me. Has that been addressed already? The whole idea that how much are you going to you have this ideology, right? And how much are your actions going to reflect that ideology? And if it's not 100% for some reason, you're less of a person.
Well, we're all wearing our purity rings. I don't know about you.
What's the libertarian purity ring look like?
Well, I could show you, but I'd have to take my pants off.
It's a public road with a big X through it.
You're a left libertarian. That's why we can't
I
deal
hang
with
to
you.
the
right?
left.
We can't deal with you, and you and your surgically altered identity, apparently. No,
All right, so we're going to take like a short 1 minute break, set everything up with Chris, and when we come back, we're going to have Chris Lempa. We're going to talk about food and how you can grow and preserve food and why that's awesome. And we've got Bosco on the line, so he'll be joining us for that. And there will be more bombast, more Thinking Liberty, some tech news, and more awesome. Stay tuned, thinkingliberty.net.
All right, now we're going to come up with tech news.
I hope you didn't go anywhere because Thinking Liberty is back from break.
I went
And
somewhere.
You went somewhere? Well, you came back.
I did. Because I have to be here for this thing.
You have to be here. All right. So we've got Tennyson here. I'm Darian. We've got Bile over there. Laura's in the other room right now, but maybe she'll come back.
She'll be back.
She went somewhere. And on the line, we've got Bosco, our co-host.
Woohoo!
There he goes.
That's what Bosco sounds like. And very happy to have him back on the program. We have Chris Lempa. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the air.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
All right, what are we talking about with Chris Lempa today, anyway?
Well, I hear you're a pickler. Is that true?
Is that something filthy?
I've made a batch or two in my lifetime. That's true.
All right. So I think one thing that we wanted to get on is we talk about practical ways for people to be more free, and I think a lot of not necessarily self-sufficiency, but creating the basis for sustainability and community resilience and just a little bit of personal autonomy is a major part of that. And I know you did some zines on canning and pickling, so we're hoping to hear what you think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I started making pickles more out of a just kind of selfish and taste reason. My mom used to make bread and butter pickles, which I really loved and still do. And then she sent me the recipe, and then I just started thinking about it more and more. And when I moved out of my old apartment when I was in college, I got a little garden plot and I started growing and lived by myself. And soon enough, I had more vegetables than I knew what to do with. So I went back to the pickling recipe she sent me, and I started experimenting with other things, peppers, okra, anything that I had, I would just try to pickle. Some things turned out really awful. Others turned out pretty good. But the one thing that was true is I was eating these vegetables throughout the winter and times that you normally can't get fresh vegetables. So it turned slightly more ideologic, but really just practical in that sense. And I wasn't even a very good gardener. I just threw some plants in the ground and just more than I can use. So rather than waste them, I decided to go ahead and preserve them.
Was it really that simple to do? I mean, you make it sound like it was just totally, anybody could do this kind of thing, but really, can anybody do this?
Making pickles or growing vegetables?
Either one, really.
I can answer both. Yeah, I think people can. I mean, I live in the Midwest, and we have some really good soil around here. So we have stuff volunteering all over our yard, just seeds popping up from squash that we had eaten before, just tossed in a compost pile, and we have seeds all over the place. Surely that's a little different than, I have friends who live in New York, and I know you guys are in that area. Might be a little different there. But,
I have some fertile soil in my windowsill.
It's true. It's true. And I mean, New York is some of the best growing soils. But it's just that weather patterns aren't that great for a lot of the things you want to have that people are used to having, I guess.
And if you don't have, actual ground that you can put things in.
Right, that too. I mean, if you live in New York, you probably live near an area that has open ground, like a little community plot. At least where I am, it's all over the place. But if you're in one of the outer boroughs, say like you're in Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, or the Bronx, then it's a lot easier to get to.
All right.
And, there are window farms and different things that people are growing. But it's pretty simple to grow a tomato plant or different things. It might take a little bit of practice or a friend who knows how to help you, but it's pretty simple. And the same is true with making the pickles too. It's not really that hard to make a simple, basic one.
All right. Now, do you just pickle, or do you also can and preserve food in other ways?
Yeah, I do both. I've done everything from infusing vinegars to I've made mead, a basic simple mead, a honey wine, recently out of I had some excess honey. And I've also made sauerkrauts and kimchi and fermented, and then so some things to eat now and some things for longer term storage. A lot of it's the same kind of principle and idea. Once you have the basic part down, your basic recipe, you can kind of do what you will with it. There's a number of variations off a couple of simple recipes.
All right.
Which are all in a little zine I put together, which I posted to your Facebook page.
Oh, fantastic! So those of you who are on Facebook and you're kind of interested in seeing how Chris does it, and maybe thinking of doing it yourself or, augmenting your experience with Chris's on the Thinking Liberty Facebook page. We've got the zine, and elsewhere on the web, where can people find your stuff?
Well, I just started a website, and it's kind of a shell right now, but it's called picklesnotpipebombs.info.
Pickles, not pythons.
And,
So you want to kill people with pickles? You're going to poison pickles?
well,
I can't do any
was at
damage
the,
with that thing. Well, I guess I could do
there's a
some damage.
oh. Yeah, no, they could. Botulism could do a lot of damage and kill people a lot simpler than a pipe bomb. But
Yeah.
the names comes out of the Libertarian National Convention, and I was wearing an anarchist shirt, and I passed off a zine to someone, and she told me she was talking to her mom and said she met some anarchists, and her mom was a little scared. But she assured them it was all right. They had pickles, not pipe bombs. So, that name had to be used for something.
That's got to be good.
Yeah, all right, that's pretty cool. All right, Bosco. Now, I know you do some food stuff. You grow, you garden, you got
You eat food.
you eat food. You
I do love me some food.
I know
Eating
you
food is
do.
good.
Do you can and dehydrate food? What do you do?
I've canned stuff, I've dehydrated stuff, and I've pickled stuff. The extent of the pickling is basically bread and butter pickles, which are just absolutely delicious. The canning, I started with a hot water bath canner, which is good for any foods that are, slightly acidic or, it's not really that great for vegetables. And then I ended up biting the bullet and getting a pressure canner, which is good for vegetables. And anybody out there who loves science, operating a pressure canner is like one of the coolest things you'll ever do. It's like, this big controlled awesome thing with steam shooting out of it, and it's just a lot of fun. So I've done that, and I've dehydrated foods and stuff like that. That's good for hiking and stuff like that, because you don't want to carry a lot of weight that's water when you're hiking, because you can usually just get water just about anywhere and purify it and use it.
Like from the watermelon that you're carrying.
Yeah, I would not want to carry a watermelon hiking.
I actually, some of my friends were talking about doing that once, and then one of my friends actually did it on a hike that I wasn't there, but
And what was the result? What did he say?
it was delicious.
Okay.
I would just be far too tempted to take that guy's watermelon at the end of the hike and destroy it.
This is the type of person that Bosco
Yeah.
is, ladies and gentlemen.
I've actually done a little dehydrating of food. I only really used my dehydrator to make jerky, though, and I did it pretty well. And then, I had a batch that came out absolutely terrible. I don't know if I didn't marinate it right or something, but
Wait, what was
it
the
just
meat?
really discouraged me. It's
a beef,
I
is it?
used beef.
What kind? What's the cut of beef that you use?
I usually used what was it?
Using
Like
a strip
roast.
steak,
Like a roast or
a rump.
no, I use like roasts usually.
Okay.
Or a flank steak.
A flank steak. Yeah, I can see.
Things you want to get something that doesn't have a ton of fat in it, or at least the fat's easy to cut out.
All right. Yeah,
for
I
making
hear
jerky.
that. I hear that skirt steak is pretty good for it, but
I think that's pretty expensive though.
skirt steak.
Oh, you know what I always get? I would get London broil because ShopRite would always have $1.99.
Yeah, they always
London
have
broil.
those sales. You see in
and
the
that's
circulars.
what I would use usually. But I've done it with deer also, which is also
venison is my family used to make a lot of venison jerky.
Mm. Yeah, I've had turkey jerky, which is very good. So
good. Yeah, it's not bad.
yeah, but I
Have
haven't
you tried
had
biltong?
what. Haven't tried what now?
Making biltong?
No.
It's a South African style of drying meat. It's supposed to be. I don't eat meat myself, but I've heard it's pretty simple to make and pretty tasty too. All you hang the meat. You don't even need a dehydrator.
Oh, you can just hang it indoors.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that done with fruit drying, but not with meat. So that'd be interesting too. Something I wanted to get into even before a lot of other stuff is recently I was reading C4SS, and David D'Amato had a whole write up there about the evil environmentalists. I'm not going to say that he's calling all environmentalists evil, but he seems not to like the environmentalist culture as it exists, and a lot of people had their say in the thread, which was long and interesting. So I saw you had a couple of responses in there as well. So I mean, you can just ad lib. What say whatever you're thinking then.
I think David D'Amato fell into a similar trap that a lot of libertarians do, and and people that I would consider even conservatives do. It's just they assume that because you want to see trees or places that don't have factories and houses on them, that you're calling for state intervention in the state to regulate things. And D'Amato was quick to point out that the government is one of the largest polluters. So why he would make the connection that environmentalists therefore want the state to take everything over, I thought was pretty silly. It just seemed like my philosophical terms aren't good, but a really bad argument. And that's really common, especially on Lou Rockwell blogs or George Reisman with Mises or
Yes.
some of those people. And it's like you have to check your logic in at the door.
Dr.
To follow those
Reisman,
arguments.
Dr. Reisman is especially notorious for his anti-green, anti-environmentalist stance there. I mean, I think he's a brilliant man, but I think that he's gone very far astray on the environmentalist issue. And luckily, he's been checked pretty much every time he writes something on this. He's been checked by a fellow named Tokyo Tom, who I don't know the actual identity of, but he's always writes very good stuff on liberty and environmental protection as well. And George doesn't reply to him directly. I think they only go through email, and George never actually bothers to concede anything, but he'll keep going on this.
Chris, I actually did want to get more into food stuff after
All right,
this,
all
but
right.
on one of
So
the
it goes hand
comments.
in hand, though. I mean, I really do think it goes hand in hand. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Darian, but
Oh
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to say that you put in there one of your comments was that you're not even really sure how much some of the more vehement anti-environmentalists even like humans. Like, what are we supposed to drink if BP is just putting oil and Corexit everywhere? And how are we supposed to breathe it? How are we going to be breathing healthily if there's coal power plants everywhere and all this other stuff? So I think that's a good point. So how can we protect the environment or enjoy wilderness without the state?
You can't.
Because Chris brought this up, so obviously I have my ideas, but I kind of want to get your perspective.
One thing is we take this idea of the environment as something that's far off and it's unreachable and unattainable to a lot of people. I'm in a big farming community, so we don't have many forests, or we don't have canyons or a lot of places to go off to. We have, a few state parks here and there, but if you talk about the environment or nature or wilderness, that's something that's really far off and unattainable to people. Plus, if you want to go up against the ranchers and say you need to stop ranching in this land, I think what the National Park System has actually done is made the divide a lot greater, and people can't see it and can't actually experience the beauty, and for one, but also just, looking and breathing the clean air, seeing clean water, actually drinking from a stream. You say it to most people, and they can't even imagine what that means because it's so far off and it's hard to get to. It's expensive to go to national parks. It's hard to get to. You can't fly directly to any of them. You can't really drive into any of them. So how to get there is a tough one. I'm not too sure. Sharing the experience is definitely a good way to do that. But I don't know. I think how are we going to do that is a little further off. I mean, it's not an immediate. There's no immediate solution. So I'm not sure. Maybe Darian has one, or maybe someone does. I'm not sure. But it's raising awareness and just letting people see what we're talking about is maybe a first step. I'm not sure.
I mean, I always put the
nuanced.
I always put the raising awareness as the number one step for everything, and I think generally that is how ideas get put into practice. And just I think a lot of it is there's partly what you're saying, to recognize that nature isn't something that's just far off, that it's something you might want to go somewhere and look at sometime, but not really interact with too intimately. And I think a lot of it is going to be bottom-up solutions, like we talk about on this show, and a lot of it's going to be just recognizing that people's stuff because a lot of the environmental problems that are immediate to people are just not respecting property or not respecting what other people possess. Whether it's a quarry ruining the environment for local people, but they get a pass because the government says it's okay, or whether it's bad air or bad water. A lot of times it's just a disrespect for other people's stuff.
Yeah, I once upon a time I lived in a small town called Chicago, and there were these coal power plants that would pop up. And, of course we're not going to shut down all the coal power plants tomorrow, but they always seemed to pop up in neighborhoods that were lower income, and majority of the population was minority. That's not a coincidence. And that's an environmental issue too, which is often overlooked on by the same authors that we were mentioning before. So that is a real life experience, and I think where D'Amato and those types are right is the environmental crowd often ignores that and doesn't take that into consideration. They'd rather talk about the redwood forests, but not the power plants or what's going on within our inner cities and to some of the most vulnerable people in our country.
Bosco, what do you think of all this? You're on the phone there.
I think I have a slightly more optimistic view than you guys, because it seems to me that no matter what, the environment always ends up kicking everybody's butt. So, I mean, if you look at like farming communities, since we really became tied to the ground and agrarian, our mentality's kind of changed. We started out like, we can take this dirt and we can force it to be productive for us. This is going to be wonderful, and we can grow corn and corn and corn and corn and corn and corn.
More corn!
Exactly. They were like, the corn's not growing so good, so we'll grow soybeans. So we'll grow corn and soybeans, corn and soybeans. They're like, it's not working too well, so we'll import nitrogen, and we'll dump that on all our fields. And it's like, well, now I'm spending $20,000 a year on nitrogen. Meanwhile, the dude next to you who knows a little bit about permaculture and that kind of stuff, and is actually expressing biodiversity on the land that he's farming, ends up being twice as profitable as you. So I think no matter what, it always ends up coming back to that balance where it's really land is best used in a state relatively close to nature. I don't think we necessarily realize that.
Huh. Okay, imagine that.
So, so what you're saying is that you're an environmentalist and you hope that people die because they can't get enough food, right? Am I reading you right?
I'm saying I'm an environmentalist, and I hope we solve world hunger by being more environmental.
Okay. I figure we could probably solve world hunger by eliminating states, but that's just me. So.
All right.
Well, if you take care of all your needs on one plot of land too, the need for this massive overarching state kind of goes away as well. It really only helps to prop up really giant, large scale things that honestly aren't necessarily as efficient.
Localism again.
Yeah. Tennyson's gonna knock me for the localism, man.
Well, I don't think that's just localism, though. I mean, there is the more you have to import, the more you're dependent on something else, and who that someone is. I mean, does it matter if you're dependent for everything on Walmart or to the U.S. government? I mean, at some point that becomes your dependency. And I said the Walmart word, which means I'm going to get labeled a commie or something. But you're dependent on something else that's larger. The more you can have, and within your local community. I mean, I belong to a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. So if we can't grow things here, we get it from those farmers, or we'll trade some stuff with someone who makes bread here in town. Of course, we go out to the store and we buy things that have been made elsewhere. But the more we can get here locally amongst our closest circles, the freer we are, in the long run. So I don't think it's localism or this fear of everything that's different. But I think Bosco had a point.
He usually does.
I think you're going to get a sweet spot between how much effort you want to put in personally. Like division of labor, there's going to be a certain sweet spot where you're going to have the ability and the patience and to do things locally versus tying yourselves into other people who provide you with certain services.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bio definitely makes a good point with the division of labor. Sorry, Bio.
It's probably it's lower than what we have now, but probably higher than what much higher than the self-sufficient types are, like the individualist anarchists, like the mountain anarchist types. It's certainly higher than that. The average person is not that self-sufficient. and but it's much lower than I think than what we would have now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that necessarily sufficiency is a matter of locking yourself off from the world. I mean, Bosco always mentions how bringing a can of tomatoes to your neighbor is always, or like extra vegetables is always, something they value. And maybe you don't have the time to garden or you don't feel like it. Maybe you'd rather do something else, but maybe your neighbor does, and maybe you really like brewing beer or something, and you don't necessarily like trade, value for value, but you both like each other, so you both create this localized economy that it can make your neighborhood a better place, and that it can mean that you're not so dependent on anything really that you can't experience what else is out there.
I think it's important to note too that a lot of this stuff, you need to know where stuff comes from. So even when you get that division of labor in there, and Bio will tell you any day that a baker can bake bread a lot better than I can. I've tried so much bread and it's just bad. I've tried beer too, and I've made some bad beer in my time. That being said, Zach Fix can make better beer than I can, and any baker can make better bread than I can. But I still know where beer and bread come from, so it's not some great mystery
Bakers
to me.
and brewers.
Exactly, it's not. Yeah, I know how yeast works. So I don't just go to the supermarket and I go, oh, well, the bread obviously comes in little bags and it's found at the supermarket. You got to have an idea where stuff comes from.
Exactly. It doesn't just infect you. You actually you can use it for stuff.
Yeah, that's actually something I like thinking of, because even just growing like a little bit on your balcony or in your windowsill, it still gives you that obviously where plants come from. They come from the ground, but it gives you that actual physical sense. It makes it more real that your food is coming from soil and sunshine and water and nutrients and not it's not just like food. Vegetables aren't just something that come wrapped in plastic at the food library.
I think less and less kids are realizing that now. I work with I know some kids who we were going through some corn, and they were wanting to throw this corn away, and I asked them what was wrong with it, and they said, well, there's dirt on it.
There's dirt on it?
I was a little surprised. There was dirt on it, and they wanted to throw it away and just say, well, this is no good because there was dirt, and it was dirt, soil, and they were saying it was bad because then we had to take time to explain to them. And kids weren't 3 or 4; these were 12-year-olds, and then there was a little worm on the corn, and they wanted to throw it away because of that. And we had to explain, no, this is actually okay, and this is why.
Isn't there a chemical you can use to take care of that stuff?
No.
Yeah. This was corn that was just picked. It was just brought in. We had gotten this corn off the field, and but it was interesting.
Kids know
and
the
quite
chemicals are bad.
I'm sorry?
No, the kids know the chemicals are bad.
Yeah, but ones under the sink are so tasty.
Oh, gosh. See, the kids have already been hypnotized by their environmentalist teachers to know the chemicals and modern technology and science are bad, and so everything that comes from the earth is good except for the dirt. So they have to find perfectly prepared foods that have no chemical additives but are totally clean.
It's a really strange situation to be in when you deal with a lot of what you see now is people who think chemicals are the worst things ever, and they're also, absolute germaphobes. It's almost like you get this class of people who are scared of absolutely everything. It's like, no, slow down. Let's learn about what soil is. Let's learn about what chemicals are and make educated decisions.
Oh, it's amazing. Just like the fear of chemicals is like it's Dow Corning. I think it's Dow that they used to have better living through chemistry, and they no longer say that because people are so afraid of chemistry that they've decided to drop that and they just say better living.
Well, I want to bring that back to canning and pickling and doing things with food. I ferment food also. I make kimchi and sauerkraut, and so many people are really, really scared if, they're just scared of the process. I mean, food fermentation is one of the oldest food processing methods around. People have been doing it for quite some time, but now to just see it, when I show people, I'm like, oh, here's some kimchi that I fermented. And they're like, well, what does that mean? So there's bacteria all over the place, and it's making this really good and tasty. And just the look on some people's faces is really bizarre. Or if I give someone a jar of pickles that I canned, their immediate thought is botulism. Well, are we going to die from botulism? Well, look up how many people actually die from botulism. It's not that common. But that's the immediate fear that these things are going to happen. And I mean, that's a much bigger issue. We're supposed to be scared of everything, like you guys said.
What's
but,
amazing, what's amazing is I grew up in a very rural area, and getting back to like your bugs issue or dirt issue or even the canning stuff, there's clearly like a generation gap or something that I you had kids who grew up around other kids or who grew up on who lived on farms. Like I had friends in high school who woke up at 5 a.m. to tend to the cows, and then they came into school. That was just a daily occurrence. I mean, that was life for many of the kids, or at least a decent percentage of the kids that I went to school with. And so I didn't live on a farm, but I had a lot of friends who were, and so I experienced all this. And people would, they had their own gardens, large gardens, like a couple acres, and they had, they would pickle things and they would make jam and jellies and all kinds of different things. But you still had these kids who are our same age in the same geographical area who were, they would buy like dog food or, well, maybe not dog food, but they would buy like animal feed because my family owns a hardware and animal food store. And we would sell like horse food or pig food or sell like bags of corn for hunters and stuff. Uh-huh. And they would get some bugs in the grain, and they would be like, "Oh, I want to exchange this." Like, you do know that it's in there like all the time, and the fact that they hatched is just you noticing now. Like, so most farmers didn't care, but occasionally you would get like, really, they were New Yorkers or something that came down to South Jersey.
Oh, New Yorkers!
And we had a guy who used to have a bagel place. He was an Italian guy who had a bagel place in the Bronx or something.
Italian bagels.
He moved down to Alloway, New Jersey, and bought a horse ranch farm for his wife or whatever, and retired at like 50. And his wife freaked out because there were bugs in her grain. And it's just amazing that people are like so out of touch, even when they live next to people where this has been going on for hundreds of years.
That's like when I make yogurt smoothies. I was like, forget protein shake. I want a rotten milk full of bacteria shake.
What kills me too is you talk about people tend to trust massive industry over individuals. So, like, when I can something, right, I got my pressure cooker.
Well, they're professionals, you get the professional touch, and that makes through some alchemy, it makes things good.
They're professionals, which means they have professional screw-ups. Like, I screw up my pressure cooker, I'm like, oh, this batch of corn smells funny. I'm like, I'm not eating this. I'm getting rid of that. I'll compost it. Fine.
Right.
When they screw up, it's like 20,000 cans contaminated that are shipped out like all over the nation to people who are like, wow, it comes from a professional. It's got to be good. So your capacity for screw up when you do things in mass is huge.
And that's the thing, with produce, we buy as close as we can to our house, food that was grown as close as we can to our house. And one of the reasons is, you might pay a little bit more, but you know where that's coming from. And a lot of times we'll buy from the farmer's market. We know the farmer. So if something went wrong with that or something turned up, if E. coli was found on my farmer's spinach or something, which it never has, fortunately, they'd be able to tell us a lot quicker. And they know where it's coming from. One of the problems with these big distribution chains is that nobody knows exactly where it's from because they're doing all this large quantity buying. And that's problematic. I mean, looking at our health and everything, I care about that. I think most people should when they're eating. Right. The system of checks and balances is just whacked when things grow so large.
Definitely.
All right, so Chris, you were mentioning before how they, you were talking about how having, I guess, not self-sufficiency, but having a little less dependence on large organizations gives you a little more freedom. Is what I'm trying to paraphrase you as saying. So I guess you think there's a connection between, canning and freedom, but you're also mentioning there's a connection between that and environmentalism. And I guess we've scratched the surface of that, but I was kind of hoping you could break that out a little bit more.
The connection between canning and environmentalism?
Yeah.
That one? Okay, yeah, I could do that. Well, one big thing is, just on the surface level, without looking too deep into it, is the jars that are used. You know, when I make a batch of pickles, and I do occasionally sell or barter them, I package them in these jars that people reuse. I mean, ball jars are a pretty hot commodity around here. You know, people make jams, or they make pickles, or, you know, our friends use them as cups, but they're reused. They're kept out of landfills. They're not sent to a recycling center where they may or may not get, you know, made into something else, but they're kept out of the landfill. Very basic. That's a surface kind of thing. When I'm growing my own food to make pickles out of or to preserve, I know it's going into them. I don't use chemicals at all myself. You know, our soil is pretty, I guess, virgin in that sense. We don't touch it in our yard. I did till a couple times, but, you know, other than that, it's just the way it is. So we know what's going into it. There's not a lot of runoff in that sense. We're not having to ship our vegetables very far, so there's less gas being used. And we all know with oil, whether or not you believe that burning oil and putting fumes into the air are bad and changing the climate, we can say that's not happening. But there's wars fought for oil, so that's probably not too good. Wars are pretty devastating on the environment. I think we can all agree on that. So the more we can keep things closer to where we are, the environmental effects are pretty positive. So I think keeping things more local in that sense are really good, especially with the food that we eat on the simple level. Now, you know, it can be, I've heard that argument called nativist before, but I don't totally think that's true. But yeah, I really think just keeping things as local as possible and as self or community sufficient as we can be is going to have good long-term effect on the air that we breathe, the built environment, which I didn't even really get into, and that's a whole other conversation in itself, but the built environments in which we live, it's becoming pretty dire. I don't really like going back to Chicago because of that. There's, you know, these huge skyscrapers all over. There's coal power plants all over the place. You send traffic for hours on end. And a lot of those things are semi-trucks bringing food up to the city from places a couple hours away, maybe, but definitely, you know, across the country. So that's a long, kind of scattered answer, but I think that's where I'm going right now. Maybe you can ask more questions to pinpoint me.
Well, I've actually got a question for you specific to canning. I've seen now they've got, well, for those of you that don't can, when you can, you've got the jar, the lid, and the band. And the jar is made out of glass, and the lid and the band are both made out of metal, and the lid has a little rubber seal on the bottom. And usually you have to get rid of the lid. Now, I've seen now that they've got reusable lids. I know I saw them in Lehman's. I saw them at a couple other places. Chris, have you tried those reusable lids at all or heard of them?
Well, no, I haven't tried those, but I will tell you, when I'm canning for myself and I know that I'm not going to be either selling or bartering the canned goods, I do reuse my lids a few times, and I have never had a problem. But with that being said, if, you know, I do give pickles away for Christmas, I occasionally sell or barter them. I won't use the same lid for that. Just I think it's kind of irresponsible. But I have not tried the reusable ones, the ones that are labeled as such.
Okay.
And so how
But,
about...
you know, I would try them. I would try them if I saw them. Maybe I'll go check those out because I you know, that is a problem, having to toss those lids, you know, after one use.
Yeah, it looks interesting. I mean, basically they said the only difference is you got to keep the bands a little bit looser and then tighten them down like a quarter turn after you're done. Like the air doesn't escape as readily as it does with the regular lids. But I mean, everything else says that it's pretty good. I haven't tried it myself, so I can't endorse it. But, you know, I'd like to know what it's like.
Cool.
Eventually, we'll have sponsors, and we can endorse things that they've sent to us. So, speaking,
if you sell those lids, mail them to us. We'll try them.
There you go.
So, how about gardening? Do you garden based on what you think you'll can, or what? Like, do you just can whatever you garden? You garden whatever you want. How does this all like fit in? Well, I guess I'm asking, does this all fit into some grand scheme? Like, I'm gonna garden, and then I'm gonna have this much, and then I'll can that, or is it just whatever?
Yes, to all of those. I grow a lot of okra. People, my friends and acquaintances and neighbors joke about my okra patches because that pretty much dominates what I grow. I just really like okra and pickled okra. So,
yeah,
not a fan, Tennyson?
Yeah, I can't. I don't like okra. I mean, it's kind of very popular where I come from, and they eat it with steamed fish, and I just can't stand okra. Too slimy.
Well, you know, that's interesting. When you pickle it, and if you pickle it correctly, it doesn't get slimy. It stays crunchy, which I didn't like okra the first few times I had it for that reason. But yeah, I started to like it for that reason. But
we'll see.
Their own, of course.
Yeah.
And then we grow a lot of tomatoes, and part of that is on accident. We didn't control them too well the first time, and the seeds just dropped, and now they've taken over a lot of the garden. But you know, we really enjoy those, and we have a berry patch. I haven't made preserves yet. I might try that in the future. But you know, a lot of the things we do grow to pickle. Peppers is a big one. Green tomatoes I've done in the past, and tomatillos. But a lot of what I use is I have some friends who are farmers, so I have done things where I'll trade, get so many carrots, and I'll pickle those, and I give them half, and then I keep half. I've done that with friends also, so I really enjoy doing that. Trade the labor for the product, and you know that works out really well. I kind of prefer doing it that way. It's kind of hard to maintain a garden. I work full time and have some other projects, and it just gets. It can be time consuming, and to grow the amount that I like to can and pickle would become a little bit overwhelming. So I like bartering. I think that works out really well.
Huh.
All right, so how do you? I guess both of you guys. How do you suggest people kind of get into this? Food preservation if they're interested. I mean, we mentioned that you have the zine out. Is there anything else that you want to recommend to people?
I have a book that I cannot say too many good words about. It's called Wild Fermentation by Sander Katz, and that's more for making sauerkrauts, quick wines, quick beers, all kinds of just fermented foods. And the book is great. He'll walk you through everything on it. It's a little bit of understanding on it too.
What's the name of the author?
The author's name is Sander, Sandor.
Okay.
Katz, Katz.
Okay, Sander
and
Katz.
His book and website are called Wild Fermentation.
Okay.
So beer, wine, vegetable krauts, all different kinds, not just cabbage, kimchi. And actually the second post on Pickles Not Pipe Bombs, which is the top one right now, is about the fruit kimchi that I made out of his book, which was kind of interesting.
Okay, so Bosco, any suggestions?
I would just suggest if you want to get into it, it's not that expensive. Try it and fail miserably. That's kind of what I've done a couple of times. I'm sitting inside right now. It's 33 degrees outside, and I've got a tomato plant that's just the fruit is just turning, and it's perfect, and it would be ready to pick in about 2 days if there's any more heat. But as such, it's going to die and lay there and be compost, and there'll be more tomatoes next year. But the thing is, the tomato cost me less than like 50 cents to get the seeds, so it's really not much of anything. And then from that point on, I have seeds from then on. So if you really there's as much as you want to put into it. So if you want to sit down, you want to read about, okay, this is the right growing times for my zone, and this is what I should do with the soil, this is what I should do with that. I mean, that's great. Try that. If you want to be really lazy, then in the spring, put some seeds in the soil and water them and be like, hey, look what happened. And, go either way.
Yeah. Yeah, the lazy gardening approach is really good and pretty easy for most people. And that's something that I think people should try. Because you can preserve just about anything. If you have watermelon, you can preserve the rinds. You can make pickled watermelon rinds, which taste a lot better than they sound. I mean, there's so many different things. The Mexican grocery stores will often sell the watermelon seeds. They're dried and sometimes salted. You can eat. So, yeah, anything you can grow, you can pretty much preserve and eat something throughout the winter. Or I think Darian mentioned it earlier, the backpacking and the hiking part. You can make chips out of kale. A hardy green that'll grow just about anywhere. So it's endless and cheap, especially when you grow your own.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, would you take those pickled watermelon rinds hiking, as we were mentioning hiking with watermelon before?
I would take pickles anywhere, so it's probably not a fair question. In fact, I was eating some pickled Jerusalem artichokes during the interview, and Jerusalem artichoke is a weed that'll pretty much take over anything, and you can make a nice pickle out of them. They go well with beer if that's your thing. They also go well by themselves if beer's not your thing.
All right.
If you want to get into the preservation end of it and you want to get into canning, it's pretty easy to get into hot water bath canning, and that'll give you like a whole bunch of foods you can try. And follow a recipe. I honestly haven't looked at Chris's zine, but I will be after this interview's over. And if you've got a recipe, it's not really that bad. You follow the recipe, you do it, bingo bango, you get a product, and you refine it the next time you do it. So that's a good way to get started too.
Okay,
Yeah, your basic pickle recipes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh no, sorry. I just want to mention we have someone in the chat room commented. Been listening. I bought some stuff from these guys a while back, and the website is perfectpickler.com.
Cool.
And he writes, there's a book called The Revolution Will Not Be Microwaved, but he hasn't read it. He likes the title, though.
I have that one. That's Sandra Katz as well, and that's a really good one. That's about a lot of underground food movements and people doing things. They're basically, for your audience, a term that would work is agorism. There's a lot of agorist food groups throughout the country, definitely, and that book's a lot about a lot of those. So it's probably a good one for this audience to check out, too. That's also by Sandra Katz.
All right.
Okay, Chris, you were mentioning something before I shut in?
I was, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
Well, that's okay.
All right. I guess we only have got to wrap this up and move on. But I just want to say, you mentioned for as far as agorism, I kind of hinted at this. I mean, a lot of the economy, there's always going to be a need for food. We have to maintain ourselves. We're always going to need to input nutrition into ourselves. So it seems like if you want to start some kind of economy from the ground up, start an alternative economy, that food might be a good thing to think about. It's pretty simple. It sounds from what you guys are saying that the startup costs are not that high, and it's something that is always going to be in demand if you're good enough at it.
Food preservation also, you move with canning, with drying, even some of the other stuff that I want to try that I haven't had a chance to try yet, like pressing and salting pork and meats, or cheeses and things like that. You move a lot of your energy requirements to the front end of the food preservation. So if you put something in the fridge, if you put something in the freezer, you've got this constant energy requirement for it, right? If you can something, you have already put the energy into it when you heated it up to sterilize everything, and then you just use that energy for the remainder of the time that you have the can around. So it's a different way of looking at it. I think it makes it a lot easier to transport and trade. So canned goods encourage trade as opposed to fresh goods, which aren't necessarily as easy to trade.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you can preserve even soups that you make or different foods that you make. Just seal them properly, and then you have that, and it's good to go for a while. Whereas if you were to keep it in the refrigerator or the freezer, and there's a power outage, and we don't even have to think the end of the world situation, but the power goes out for an extended period of time, you're going to have food to eat. It really makes sense. It's easy to do. If you're making a batch of soup, for instance, once you have the necessary equipment, a pressure canner, you're good to go. Just make a few extra, pints of it and seal them, and you have those for when the power goes out, or for a year or two afterwards, in case anything happens. You lose your job, the economy goes bad, the economy is bad, I guess it was a bad joke, but, we'll have those things, and we're prepared to live the same way that we are, even if something really bad happens, take a bad turn in your life. Growing food is easy, there's kits now, and there's different units you can build to grow hydroponic vegetables in your windows that are made specifically for people who live in apartment buildings and complexes. Window Farm is a really good project on that one, and I think they've open sourced the blueprints, so you can just go and build those. It's based off of equipment you could buy at a pet store, and then also just water bottles, empty water bottles. Yeah, so there's all these really interesting things going on so we can take back at least our food and our nutrition and our health, and that is really important.
It looks cool too, and it makes your room smell better. I got some hydroponic tomatoes in the windowsill right now, and they're like growing all over the place, and it's nice. You can pull the curtains back, and you can. It smells like fresh tomato plants, which is a nice smell.
They're probably better than some of the other stuff that you got.
Yeah,
Right?
probably better than my pile of dirty laundry and nastiness that's also there.
All right. So Eric Otama in the chat room, brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs when we were talking about food. Tom, I don't know if you listened to our podcast from last week, but we were actually discussing Maslow's hierarchy with Mel Pinkert and just how starting at the bottom of that, satisfying different human needs is a good way to displace the state and the power that it holds. Bosco, real quick, you say you dehydrate. What do you use to dehydrate? Do you actually have an electric dehydrator, or you just use the oven?
I actually have an electric dehydrator. I'd like to build a solar dehydrator sometime. There's one at a park by my house that they use for drying nuts and things like that. It's the electric gets the job done. Honestly, I don't dehydrate as much this time of year because I'm tending to preserve food. Towards the fall, I was tending to preserve food more for the winter. The dehydrator I mainly used for like camping meals and stuff like that.
All right, so I think we are going to have to wrap this up. Do you guys have any more comments on the topic? You're welcome to stay on for the rest of the program if you want.
No, I'm good.
I can do that.
All right, well, cool. All right, so we should take a break.
You want to take a break?
I think we should.
We'll take a short break. We'll get pumped up for our remaining 15 minutes, and then we'll deliver.
Pumping up and airing out.
All right, stay with us. ThinkingLiberty.net.
All right.
Get ready to be really free because you're listening to ThinkingLiberty.net, and that's what we do.
I don't know. I'm pretty free already.
Pretty free?
Yeah, not very free, but pretty free.
All right. What was that?
I said that it just started strong, and then it was just like, because that's what we do.
That's just what we do.
That's how it goes.
It's like Heritage. We have the levels of more free and less free, where we've got the rating going.
Yes.
Tennyson's on the blue color. He's more free. He could be a little more free, but he's not less free. So
yeah, I'm not up to their Hong Kong level yet, but no, one of these days. So
you have not achieved the highest level.
I have not achieved Hong Kong, yeah. But something I wanted to mention about the environmentalism thing is that the brilliant Mr. Carson, he's comes up with points like just complete throwaway points that are amazing. You could probably do a dissertation on it, though. Is that Hayek's point on why Hayek is more conservative than others? He says that things have evolved and developed over the years because that's simply the way they are. Don't go into radical changes of things because things have developed in a certain way because that's probably the ideal way that they were going to develop. Any drastic changes away from these things were probably going to lead to less than ideal results. And so Kevin Carson, of course, links this idea of drastic changes to people making drastic changes to the environment. The environment has evolved this way over the millennia for this long, and liberals who would take this idea of Hayek seriously should probably take that into consideration, and it would make them a little bit more amenable to the environmentalist idea. That, no, you don't go in making any kind of drastic, dramatic change to the environment you want to. No, because things have come this way for a reason. And you should think about that before you do it.
It almost sounds also like the central planning, the knowledge problem that if you're manipulating this huge area, you don't really... Do you really know what the entire ecosystem is doing? Yeah, you can study that, and I think it will be necessary as humans colonize other planets to actually study and know ecosystems. But who should really be making up the decision for this whole area?
Right. So making big old changes to the food web and the food chain is probably going to be a bad idea. So.
Well, it's energy conservation, right? You're dealing with thermodynamics. You're gonna blow so much energy attempting to, for example, terraform something, as opposed to just adapting to live there. So it doesn't make sense to blow a lot of energy doing these massive changes.
All right, we have a caller, but first we have to have a word from our sponsor, I believe. All right, who's going to read the word from our sponsor? Do we have it up here on the screen?
Do we actually have sponsors' words here?
All right.
You're just lying to me, aren't you?
Okay. All right. First of all, caller, how you doing?
Say hi.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right. I guess we'll do the read after this caller. What did you want to talk about? I see your name is Todd.
Should we say the name here?
Skype.
It's our friend Todd of the show. Say hi, Todd.
Hey, this is Todd Andrew Barnett.
There you go.
Yeah, you know me, the host of Liberty Cap Talk Live and editor and publisher of Let Liberty Ring. So I'm calling in to talk about the whole WikiLeaks saga pretty much. I've been looking into it heavily.
All right, so we were talking about that a little bit at the beginning of the show. What did you have to add on the topic?
Well, pretty much it's interesting what's developing here with respect to how the federal government and the number of big banks are basically responding to this whole affair. With Assange already having surrendered himself to the British law enforcement authorities, and now extraditing himself. Well, pretty much he's surrendering to the British police over the rape charges and whatnot. And this is nothing else a witch hunt, if you will, a very carefully orchestrated witch hunt by pretty much by the international world, pretty much by our government, pretty much by the Swedish government, in order to destroy this man and his organization. I'm sure you've heard about what happened with WikiLeaks today, as far as PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard canceling their accounts with them, so that WikiLeaks wouldn't.
They're certainly tightening the screws, all around. How do you think that's going to affect them?
Yeah, they are doing that, and what I find particularly offensive is. Oh, am I still on the air?
Yeah,
you are. You're
okay. I thought you guys lost me here. But anyway, what's really offensive about this whole situation is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to make an example of Assange, And you have Eric Holder pretty much saying this man is very much arrogant. How arrogant of him to basically come out with these documents about what he's doing with his organization and the whole 9 yards. I mean, they're trying to dance around this whole issue, basically passing the blame from them to people like him, to people like Assange and WikiLeaks. And what I find interesting is that they're basically trying to, first of all, make veiled threats against anybody who is lending support to WikiLeaks. Not just to companies, but anybody, because they're trying to designate him as not just a terrorist, but also WikiLeaks as a terrorist organization. You've had people like Newt Gingrich appearing on Judge Napolitano's show, Freedom Watch, basically saying that Assange must be tried as an enemy combatant. So when you have this little collusive nature between the various banking institutions, or these organizations like PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, a number of organizations that Assange and WikiLeaks had been affiliated with, it's pretty clear that they're trying to destroy WikiLeaks and wipe it off the map. Although they're not entirely wiping off the map. Fortunately, a company called Mobil, and not to be confused with the gas company Mobil.
No, not Mobil.
Yeah, but this organization is basically providing assistance to WikiLeaks.
Yeah, so they still have assistance, and they also have a lot of individuals who are on their side. We mentioned before all the mirrors. We have a person in our chat room saying Anonymous is striking back. They just took down the site for the law firm prosecuting Assange. I mean, I know there have been other attacks. So very interesting situation here. We have all these international players are against this guy. You said, they do want to make an example of him. They want to discourage this kind of behavior, but I think they also want to deflect all this attention, all this negative attention they're getting onto the persona of Assange and just discredit WikiLeaks by
it's interesting. It's interesting that Eric Holder, who recently held a press conference, I believe it was today, in which he said that WikiLeaks is "quote unquote" arrogant, misguided, and ultimately not helpful in any way. To be quite honest,
that sounds like government.
He's basically describing the state. He's basically describing the state. He's describing himself and the state perfectly. But it's a great way to diverge attention from the state and put the onus on WikiLeaks.
Absolutely.
And
okay, Todd, we gotta move on with the program. Do you have any concluding thoughts you want to bring into this conversation?
Well, I believe that Julian Assange is going to need a lot more help than he realizes, and we need to stand by him all the way, and also WikiLeaks. And once and for all, the internet, freedom of speech on the internet is now under attack. This is going to result in a significant turn to cyber warfare because of what the state is doing to crush free speech on the internet.
All right.
And that's pretty much what we need to do. Stand by Assange, stand by WikiLeaks, and let's show that the state and tell them, go back to that little rock that you crawled out of, and just stay there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Todd. So we all got to think, what are we ready to do to protect free speech, to protect the freedom of information, and just keep the pressure on the state and off the whistleblowers. So thanks a lot, Todd. Again, you can join the conversation. Check out thinkingliberty.net in the contact box. We got all our info there. Before we get on, I think we got to read a word from our sponsor.
Yes, we do. So let me get the word up right here. So this is, what's the name of the sponsor you said?
The sponsor is junkgrabber.com, and it's real. It's not one of the fake commercials that we've made, so go ahead and give it a read.
What a funny name that is here. But anyway, let's continue. Do you have junk? Sure you do. We all do. Do you like cash? Sure you do. Well, then why not let the junk grabber grab your junk? The TSA won't pay you, but I will. Check out junkgrabber.com. This is totally real, by the way. So you should go check out junkgrabber.com. I haven't looked at the site yet, but I'm going to look at it right now. So
All right, junkgrabber.com. I went there
it's simple.
actually,
Yeah.
and it's a business, and it incorporates the idea of sustainability. So here's a positive example of a business appealing to greenness. And not necessarily just greenwashing. Like, let's put a little green logo on this plastic wrapped thing. I think The Onion actually had a good thing about that. How can a green logo help your company or something?
This is real. So this is real.
This is totally real.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, what kind of junk do you think you could probably like if you were going to bring something down? What would you bring there?
I don't know. Maybe just. I can't think of anything offhand that I have. I'm sure I have a lot of junk that I could get rid of.
I have a lot of extra
cars,
digital equipment, routers,
Okay.
and switches, and video game consoles, things that I need to get rid of.
You have e-waste.
Yeah, lots
right.
of e-waste. Well, it's recyclable though. I mean, or reusable, not recyclable. So
All right,
it's
all right.
stuff that I probably should just put
know
on
what?
eBay or something.
Garland is actually looking for either donations or money for presents to unfortunate children anywhere this Christmas. So, that would probably be a good idea if you have things that you want to part with or you're willing to part with. Might be a good idea. Contact her. It's before Christmas. Still got time.
How can people contact her?
She actually has a group on Facebook. It's called the Elf Liberation Front after the Harry Potter group. But you could probably contact her at her own website. So, what is that? Garland. avantgarland.net. I'll look it up. We'll put it on the the podcast link later on so we can get an idea.
Okay, so speaking of green, didn't the U.S. government make a mistake with a lot of green it was printing out?
So I've heard, but they seem to have been making mistakes with that stuff for the last, say, 90 so years. But this one in particular seems pretty egregious. So there was a story here. I found it over on... where did I find it? I found it at Engadget, and it was kind of remarkable that they would even get this. They would screw this stuff up. But let me just read the Engadget thing here. So, the cats had a. Yeah, there are cats in the studio, and the cats eat, and you know what happens after they eat? They make a mess. So.
What? Are you distracted?
I'm totally distracted by the... Yes. So someone else who's not on mic has come out and reacted in the way that I
like spit.
I know. It was like, wow.
For such small creatures, they sure have a smell to them.
They pack a punch.
Anyway, so
what's the story, Tennyson? What happened?
All right. Loading it up. Okay. So the U.S. Treasury Department may have been eager to open the doors to its money printing factory back in July to show off its brand new $100 bills, but it looks to be a decidedly different story today. As CNBC reports, all of the added security measures have apparently been harder to print than expected, and have resulted in a creasing problem that's left some bills with a blank portion on its face. So the real problem, however, is that it's not clear how many bills have the flaw, which has forced the department to quarantine some 1.1 billion bills, not dollars, but billion bills, $100 bills. So how much money is it? It's $110 billion in total.
Yeah, they said it's like 1/9 or 1/10 of the total amount of currency.
That's a pretty big failure, I guess.
Maybe of all $100 bills, I forget, but it's still a huge amount.
It's a huge amount of. It's a huge mistake here. They have screwed up.
They said that they
here.
actually had to keep the quantity of money the same. They had to print old bills with what's his face's signature on it.
Oh, it's with Hank Paulson.
Yeah, with Paulson's signature because they don't have any other what are they called?
The new template one? They didn't have enough of the good ones of the new ones. Yeah, so it says there's 1.1 billion bills until they can be sorted. One person familiar with the matter says as many as 30% were affected at the height of the problem. As you might expect, that accounts for a pretty big chunk of the bills intended for circulation, which has forced the Fed to print some more of the older $100 bills that still feature Bush Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson's signature in the meantime. And another person commented on my Facebook page that this cost them $120 million. It's a $120 million mistake that they just continued making before they caught this. That's
government efficiency. They're very
rather
efficient
spectacular.
at pouring money down a giant hole. They just,
Maybe their printing presses are just so damn fast.
They are.
That by the time they notice, like, it could have been a day and they already printed out billions of dollars.
It's like, wow.
I doubt it. But
they're trying to hyperinflate. It seems. Have you seen the?
Speaking of which, the 60-minute interview with Ben Bernanke.
Oh,
Have you
that's
guys
cool.
seen that?
No.
It's a 15-minute segment with Ben Bernanke.
Does it show him as the greatest hero ever?
Well, it's an interview with him,
Yeah.
and he sounds. His voice is like crackling.
Okay.
Like he's nervous. He's so arrogant in this video, but at one point he says, he's like, this whole thing about the Federal Reserve printing money, he's like, the amount of currency in the system doesn't change. We're not printing money. He's like, we're just buying up bonds.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like, no one means it literally, you idiot. It's like, we know the Fed isn't printing $100 bills. The Treasury does that, and it doesn't do that well, obviously.
Obviously.
It's like buying up credit. Like,
Wait, I
that's
thought
printing
all
money.
transactions took place with like giant burlap sacks with dollar signs on them, and maybe sometimes a suitcase if you want to get really fancy. Am I wrong?
No.
Oh,
you're not.
okay. Oh, that's just how everyone pays me.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right.
So, they're going to bring you a suitcase full of $5 bills. That's what it is.
All right.
Why not hundreds, but fives?
I recommend anyone take a look at that video because it's just amazing. I don't know if the man is that dumb that he thinks that people are actually questioning the Fed in this way,
Yeah.
or if he knows that they're asking real questions and then trying to dumb down what they're asking to make either them look bad or just divert the
Well,
topic.
why are the
knows?
peasants questioning what this expert's doing? He's obviously so much smarter than us.
Well,
we
he
should
comes
just
off that way.
He is pretty smart, by the way.
They ask him whether or not he thinks that the Fed will take care of this issue.
You're right.
What's going on right now economically. He's like, oh, I'm totally sure, 100% we'll take care of this, no
course.
problem. Like, we're supposed to believe this guy who didn't
Yes.
even predict the housing bubble at the peak.
He's very busy. You know how it is. He's real busy.
So we're towards the end of our program. We did
We're-
promise some tech news.
we are at the end
and
of
I
the
want to talk
program.
about this awesome movie I saw called 127 Hours.
And we don't even have 127 seconds for you. then.
It was a great movie. One of the most intense movies I've ever seen.
Hurry.
So check it out. And let's give a minute of tech news.
Okay, a whole minute of tech news.
We'll give you more minutes
All
next
right.
time.
Google enters the e-book market with a few hiccups. So if you want it, you can go check out Google's bookstore you can find now. Google just opened an electronic bookstore that offers titles and formats compatible with web browsers, Apple and Android mobile devices, most of the e-book readers, but not Amazon's line. So that's just something for you. Even though Amazon can probably read the PDFs and EPUBs that you put on there. So over at Kurzweil's blog, they have how to achieve biological immortality naturally.
What's Kurzweil's blog?
Well, it's Ray Kurzweil over at KurzweilAI.net. So, Ray Kurzweil, the author of The Singularity is Near, Age of Spiritual Machines, yada, yada, yada. He's the one who does all the stuff. This is a post that appeared on the blog here. It's pretty fascinating. It's the idea that, biological aging has a ending period sometime around, say, like the 90s or so. But you have to live long enough and be in a good enough condition to actually make it to be sustained at that point. So if you can get to your 80s and still feel like your 20s and look like your 20s, then you're probably going to be fine.
So I should really focus on what I'm putting into my rotten milk smoothies, right?
I can't comment on that. But also, just a whole chain of tech news. Printed, lots of new large-scale print manufacturing, 3D structures, etc. It's really getting really, really nice. More, laser printing for metal parts of your 3D printer if you're going to do that too.
Metal!
Yes, total metal, the kind of music that plays on the show that I can't listen to. Conversation with developers of a 100-core chip, and that's coming soon. What else? Methuselah Foundation's offering a prize for their organ printing now, so not organ grinding, but organ printing. There's going to be a lot of really, really cool stuff. People using bacteria and controlling them to make little pyramid shapes on the microscopic level. I can't. I don't even have any words for this anymore. But we got to go. We got to go.
We'll talk about this more next time.
Yeah.
For real. And who else? Oh, we're going to have Anarchist Against the Wall on.
Yeah.
The next show after that, we might be talking live from Boston with some awesome people who are going to be at the APA conference.
Yeah, what's the date on that anyway? The 30th?
The 28th, 29th.
Okay, yeah, that's good enough.
All right, so this has been another awesome broadcast of Thinking Liberty, your anarcho-bombast podcast.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. Check out all the archives, all the downloads, and all the other awesome stuff at thinkingliberty.net. Thank you for listening. Be free.
Happy belated birthday, Stacy.
Walking on eggshells, kicking around, the boots too big, making me think of someone else. Fucking with my head, pulling my hair out, fist and clump. I think I found the road to hell. Living in your dreams, enough to make any good man bad. Screaming away from the place you live. Now that I've left you, everything fits where it belongs. Giving you was my best to